Hello, and welcome to the Alpha Male Podcast, the podcast where we talk about what it means to be an alpha male. And we don't apologize for it. We don't apologize for what we're created to be or for walking that out. Strong, dominant alpha males made in the image of our Creator. Before we get into the podcast, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. Especially subscribe, because by God's grace, there's going to be some big news coming soon on the podcast, which, again, by God's grace, will mean bigger and better things. So make sure you're subscribed so you're getting in on that. If you want to check out more while you're listening, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. That's your one-stop shop, goodshepherdtraining.com. As usual, I will plug in the bio because I generally don't like talking about myself for quite a while before every episode. If you want to skip it, you can skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds from where it starts. I will do a short amendment to the bio as it pertains to today's topic. You may want to listen to that. Today, we're going to be talking about the very real topic, the very real presence of civil unrest and rioting in today's world, and what that may or may not mean for you. With that, the bio. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic.
So a little bit about the things I've seen in life as it pertains to civil unrest and rioting. So I joined the Marine Corps at 17, and that was way back in 2001. This was before we went to war. This was pre-9/11. And I was in Kuwait waiting to cross the line, waiting to cross the border into Iraq. We had not yet invaded Iraq. We had not yet declared war. But we knew it was coming. We were sitting in our tents on the Kuwait border of Iraq. I had obviously already been through boot camp and basic training. And to my unit, we had shipped out. We all knew war was on the horizon, but we didn't know exactly when. And I don't have a way to prove this, and I'm not going to go back and try and substantiate it now, but we were told, and I have no reason to doubt, that we were, if not the first unit, one of the very first units to cross the border into Iraq. And I was infantry, and I saw things that only a Marine Corps infantryman in war would see. I got to see some unbelievably awesome and horrible things. One thing I got to see was I was in Baghdad, and I was a specialized infantry, and I was attached to, let's just call it, a very special unit. And we were in Baghdad covertly before we destroyed it. So I got the very, let's say, unique perspective. I was blessed to see Baghdad as a functioning major metropolitan city, much as you would see in New York or LA or London or Tokyo. Now, culturally, those places are very different, but they all have things in common, and they are a functioning society and culture in a large metropolitan area. They had electricity, they had running water, they had culture. The neighbors in our safe house, next to our safe house, were British. From what I understand, there was a pretty well thriving Christian community and Jewish community before we went in there. It was a large metropolitan city. It was a big, big city with a large population. I just looked up, and this is one source, but it says the population was over 5 million in Baghdad pre-invasion. And I got to see that city as the units came in, as we invaded it, as we bombed it. I got to see beautiful marble floors destroyed under several tons of tank and war machine. I got to see a functioning society with happy people walking down the street and kids playing. To packs of ruling factions, call them what you want, tribes, radical Islamic extremists, fighting in the street, shooting in the street. A society where once cops and police cars meant order, to having no idea what side they were on, whether they brought peace or chaos. The sound of gunfire in the streets and buildings literally being bombed and crumbling. The loss of utilities, the loss of things like power and clean running water. And sadly, fields of bodies just laying there in the sun. And it didn't take very long. I got to see that perspective that most other soldiers and Marines that came after me did not get to see, because it was always a war-torn place when they came. They had never seen it as it was before, much like any modern city in America and Europe would be. They didn't get to see it descend. They didn't get to see the breakdown. How quick it was, how violent it was, how unpredictable it was for the people that lived there. But I'm blessed that God got me through that safely, and that I can share that with you today, and then we can talk about it and learn from it and glean from it, and that you hopefully never have to see anything that horrible. Also went to work for LAPD. And as you might imagine, we had our share of rioting and protests. And I would call them more, especially after the Iraq incidents, especially after the war, I would call them more of civil disobedience and protests. But there's some violence, yes. We obviously trained for civil unrest and rioting. We obviously got deployed to civil unrest and what I would call more not so peaceful protests. Also dealt with this both in training and getting ready for when I was a private contractor. And I was the commander of a tactical team when the large metropolitan area we protected got shut down for COVID. And I got to see on American soil just a light sprinkling of civil unrest and got to see quite a high spike in violent crime during that time. People getting desperate, people protesting because of things going on in other cities. In Minneapolis, which is not where I was, which is quite a far ways away, there was some, let's just call it racial tension. And some of the people that served under me, in fact, one of the members that served me on that tactical team, one of their family members was killed in let's call it a protest gone wrong with police. One of the family members of one of the men was killed, shot and killed. I got to see quite a bit of violence here on American soil. And again, it's alarming how quickly a city can change. Normal every day to chaos. So there's a few things that God has gotten me through. And with that experience, I'd like to share with you some lessons learned, some things that we can learn about rioting, civil unrest, chaos. Call it what you want. Lesson number 1, don't be in the cities. Don't be in the cities. Come out of her, my people, as it says in the Bible. So don't be in the cities. There's a time and a place. You heard my bio. I don't want to be a hypocrite. As a young man, I felt the calling to serve and protect others. The reasons I stepped up as the commander of a tactical team, to command that and be in charge of that and be willing to lay my life down, kicking down doors for the men and women on that team, is because I felt the calling to protect life and preserve life and help others. And I was willing to lay down my life for the citizens and especially the members on that team. Obviously, when I served in the military, I felt the calling to do that. I've always felt called to be a warrior and a soldier. At that time in my life, I had to obviously live in a city to be the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. If that's not the walk that you are in life, if that's not the place where you are in life, if that's not your job, if you feel called to, come out of her, my people. Get out of this city. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. There's rarely rioting in the cornfields of Nebraska. There's rarely rioting in the sawtooth wilderness of Idaho or in the Everglades of Florida. Take your pick. If you feel called to, if you don't feel or if you're not, I should say, fulfilling a calling in the city, come out. Come out of her. Be separate. Revelation 18. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. You get any large gathering of people together, and it's just statistically, some of those people are not going to be good people. Generally, there are people that keep those people in check, law and order, but if that law and order is removed, then what happens? And when people see other people getting away with stuff, some people that are normally neutral will shift over and take advantage of the situation. All that being said, that is mitigated if you remove yourself from that large gathering of people. And I'm not talking about suburbs, what I call people hives. That's still a large gathering of people. As I alluded to in the situations I've been in, it is amazing how fast a city can descend into chaos. The next tip, if you are in a city or have to work in a city, is leave before you think you need to. Things happen quickly. Things escalate very quickly. If you've ever been in a traffic jam, which I'm sure you probably all have if you're listening, you'll know that when I was LAPD, if I got on the freeway at a certain time, 15 minutes later, it might cost me another hour on the freeway. Likewise, in a disaster, if you don't get out before you think you need to, if you wait till it's very obvious that you have to get out, then most people are going to know they have to get out and they're all going to try and flee. So get out before you think you need to. Take a quick vacation. Your family on a camping trip, whatever that might be. Get out before you think you need to, before it's obvious. Because if it's obvious, everybody's going to be trying to get out. If you've listened recently, you know that I actually had to bug out. Not because of any civil unrest or anything. In fact, the opposite of that. We live near two giant national forests. One's 1.6 million acres and one is 1.8 million acres of beautiful wilderness and forest. There was a wildfire. We had to get out quickly. And you may want to go back and give that episode a listen. I actually did two, one right afterwards and one a week or so afterwards with lessons learned from actually bugging out. Again, it is amazing how quickly things can break down. But a big lesson learned from that, and this also applies to civil unrest, is have a plan. We knew where we were going. We knew we were bugging out too. And rewinding, when my wife and I lived in the city, when I was the commander of that tactical team, one of the SOPs that we had, standard operating procedures for you, non-military types, our standard operating procedure, we knew where we were going to rendezvous. And when big situations happen, whatever that disaster might be, especially civil unrest, especially like a bombing or a giant event or rioting, if everybody is trying to use their cell phones, their communications at once, they normally crash. It's normally not feasible to be able to make a call and just talk to somebody. One tip is you may try and send several text messages, the same one over and over, in hopes that one will get through. But don't rely on that. My wife and I both carried in our vehicles a different color of paint, a very obnoxious color. My wife had like this little lavender color of purple, a very uncommon color, and I had a weird kind of green color. We had places where we were going to meet. We lived within running distance of each other. We worked for a giant company, and I won't say anymore because I'll give it away what I did. But we lived in a large metropolitan area, and we were within running distance of each other. We knew that freeways and things could get clogged and congested, and we may not be able to drive to each other. But we had a plan and where we were going to meet up. And if we got there and the other person wasn't there, we knew if that paint was there, that person had already been there and where they were going next. If we saw that paint, if we saw that color, most people aren't going around tagging gang signs in lavender purple. We knew if, let's say I went there and I saw that, I knew that she had already been there and she was on her way to the next place, safer and further away from the large metropolitan area. We had that SOP. I don't remember if we're doing this at the time, but we do it now. And I'll call myself out. I probably need to recharge it because it's been a while, but we carry walkie-talkies in the glove boxes of our cars so we can communicate even now. All that to say, have a plan. Don't, in the middle of this chaos, in the middle of this civil breakdown and unrest, think, oh, I got to get my kids and my wife or my friends or whatever, and they have no idea where to meet because, again, you probably won't have comms. You probably won't be able to use your cell phone. No idea how to get them, where to get them. If something happens, your kids know where to rendezvous with you if it's not at home, if you can't get home. I have several places picked out. If you don't have kids, you don't have to freak them out. Just say, hey, if something bad ever happens at school and you have to run away or you get away, that spot where we went squirrel hunting or that spot where like to park and watch the sunset, that's where we're going to meet. And they know that. That way if something bad happens, they don't have to figure out how they're going to find you. Lots of people and families and refugees and stuff get displaced in disasters. Don't let that be. You have a plan. Have a plan first. When that wildfire broke out, my wife and I had a pre-designated bug out location. and we had 2 designated routes. We knew. My wife just reminded me also, we had, especially when we lived in a large metropolitan area, we talked about those colors of paint. Well, we had sat down and made a list of things we were going to grab, things that were most important. If we had more time, we would grab more stuff. But as you may imagine, if you listen to Gunfighter Life, another podcast that we do, I'm kind of into guns, obviously. I've made my living as a professional gunfighter most of my adult life. I have like my go-to guns, and a couple especially. Like, this is my go-to end of the whatever chaos is descending upon us, the peanut butter and chocolate has hit the fan, guns. And I had certain ammo and stuff designated for that. I had our important documents where they were going to be. And a lot of that stuff I tagged with that obnoxious color so that you could just walk through the house and be like, oh, that's super bright green. I'm grabbing that. That's important. Especially when there's a lot of stuff going on and rioting and looting. And, you know, especially if you got to get out of there, the first ones to get out of there are going to get out of there much faster than people that wait 4 or 5 or 6 minutes later. So my wife just reminded me that I kind of forgot about that. Yeah, not all this stuff was tactical. Like I said, important documents. Refugees. Like, you need to be able to prove who you are, what you've done, things like that. Clothes that you're going to take or a pre-designated things to grab. Passport might be pretty important. Cash. Cash is a big one. In a big disaster, except for the very biggest of disasters, cash is going to be much appreciated and good to have when things like ATM machines aren't working and power's out. I forget the guy's name, but he was in one of the South American countries when it broke down into civil unrest. And I forget the exact quote, but it was something like, a Glock 19 and $10,000 will get you out of a lot of problems. And I see a lot of wisdom in that. Especially even if it is a complete breakdown, even at first, you offer somebody $1,000 for a couple of gallons of gas. If you need it, it's worth it. And if they don't know exactly what this is going to pan out to be, and you offer them that kind of money, they'll probably take it. Do that with anything, food, water, whatever, especially in the beginning. But anyways, we've done whole episodes on bug out bags and smaller bug out bags and things like that. You can go back and look those up. Have a plan. Have a plan to get out. Have a plan of things you need to take and things that aren't important. The human life is most important, but some things, and these things happen quickly. Big fan of keeping things in your vehicle for this very reason. Jesus talks several times about the end of the age. He says, flee to the mountains. He also says, don't turn back. It's going to happen suddenly. But he's talking about like the end of the age, the end of days. But most disasters, they can happen pretty quickly. So don't have all your ARs and your shotguns and everything in a safe locked up at home on a 50-mile commute to work. Have that in your car. People often, are amazed that I keep like a couple of long guns in my car. Like, what if somebody breaks in and takes them? Like, God will provide. I'll get more. That's way better than the reverse in that there's a big mass shooting or mass chaos and I need, or it would be very beneficial to have something a little bit more potent than my everyday carry gun, my concealed carry gun, and it's 50 miles away locked in a safe somewhere. If it's one of your go-to guns, it needs to be where you are. So quick recap. Come out for my people. If you can, don't be in the city. Get out before you think you need to. Have a plan. My wife will tell you that I'm not the most organized person, but when it comes to this, I like a little bit of organization. I like to know what's going on and have a plan. Not a place to be unorganized. Have backup comms. Have backup communications. Your cell phone's probably not going to work in a major disaster. Walkie-talkies. Whatever that plan could be something so simple, and I just make this up. You could say, that place we're going to meet? This corner, there's a stop sign. If there's a pile of rocks, if I pile a pile of rocks up near that stop sign, that means that it's not safe to go home. In certain kind of tactical operations, we use stuff like this all the time that just the average passerby is not going to know. If there's a stick in this mailbox, when you walk by and check it, if there's a stick in there, that means it's not safe to go here. It means I've already been here and left, and you need to meet me at X so-and-so place. It's not complicated stuff, but everybody needs to be on the same page and know it beforehand. You need to know where you're going. You need to have a plan and a location. And again, rally points. That's what we're talking about. If you're not a military person, I try not to use too much military vernacular. But rally points, objective rally points, fallback rally points. And again, you don't have to say all these crazy terms and freak people out. You and your wife both work in the city, live at home. If something happens, this is where we're going to meet. If that's not viable, if that's where a problem is, then we're going to meet here. We're going to meet at the Tasty Freeze where we like to get, ice cream. I'm making stuff up. I don't know. You get the point, whatever that is for you. Now let's say you've screwed up, you are in the city, you didn't get out in time and you can't get out. Now what? And you need to have a plan beforehand if you can't get out. A big killer in any natural disaster, and especially if things go down a long period of time, people die from lack of water and they die from lack of clean water. Big killer in a lot of disasters is people drinking dirty water and dying from waterborne diseases. If you live in a city, you're probably not on a well, you're probably on city water. What happens when the city stops cleaning that water? Or what happens when you turn on the tap and no water comes out? Again, as soon as you get the inkling before you think you need to, maybe fill your bathtubs up with water, you ought to store a little bit of water in your house. Again, it's not hard. You don't have to freak people out. Just have a couple of cases of water in the bottom of a closet. We used to have an area in our apartment that we didn't use much, and we had it filled with the 5-gallon containers of water in case we couldn't get out. You probably have a little bit of food in your apartment. I'm a big fan of storing food and things like that. Water's important. Clean water is important. Don't just assume because your whole life you turn on a tap and water's come out that it's going to be that way in a disaster. And have a plan, again, for hardening your home. Teach whole courses on this, on home hardening, on hardening your home, making it a hard target. But again, your best bet is to be out of the city. I don't care how hardcore prepper you are with your awesome battle rifle and your super tactical kit, your plate carrier and your night vision goggles on your helmet, protecting your home. If you live in a cul-de-sac and there's civil unrest, somebody could just break into the home beside you and, lob Molotov cocktails in your house. You can stand your ground and fight, but when your house is on fire from an empty beer bottle full with 50 cents worth of gasoline, it doesn't take much to burn down most residences. All the ammo and guns in the world is not going to save you from that, so try and get out of there. If you have to, try and make your home a harder target. A lot of times, I hate to put it this way, but looters and mobs and things go for low-hanging fruit. They go for easy targets. So if you can make your place a harder target, a big part of this is community. Again, have a plan. Talk to your neighbors beforehand. If you live in the suburbs, what I like to call a people hive. If there's 5 cul-de-sacs and one has banded together and parked all their vehicles in front of the cul-de-sac and blocked it and has barricades and has people on patrol with, flashlights, with ways to defend themselves, they might not want to mess with that cul-de-sac. Again, any determined intruder, you're probably not going to be able to defend against long term. There's a region siege warfare so effective, but if they're just looking for easy targets, don't be that easy target. Be a hard target. And that's a whole other thing we can get into with a whole other episode. And if you like this episode, I'd like to hear it, and I'd like to make this a series. I would like to get more into home hardening, community hardening. I would also like to get into the firearms, as you can imagine. Again, I've been a professional gunfighter most of my adult life. Good and bad choices for civil unrest firearms. Ways to employ them and deploy them. When that's good, when that's bad, when it's appropriate, when it's not. All those kind of things I could get into in today's episode. But if you'd like me to get into that, and I probably will, number one, make sure you're subscribed to the Alpha Male Podcast so you can get those when they come out. Make sure you're subscribed. If you want to help the podcast, like it, leave a review. And if you want to check out more, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. If you thought that this podcast was worth supporting, if you think the message, not just today's message, but the overarching message and the information presented is worth a fraction of the cost of a box of ammo or even a fancy city cup of coffee, consider going to goodshepherdtraining.com. There's a Patreon link on there. These are free for you to listen to, but they are not free to produce. especially when your Rhodesian Ridgeback puppy eats your microphone and it needs to be replaced. But just things like that. They need to get paid for, guys. Anyway, if you want to support, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. There's a Patreon link on there. If you want to support in another way and don't just want to give for free, there's some merchandise on there. And if you're looking forward to more content on this subject and other subjects, make sure you're subscribed. That way you get it when it comes out. That's going to bring us to the tactical tip of the day. And I feel like there's been a lot of tactical tips in this episode. The tactical tip of the day, this comes from Patreon. And I don't want to harp on Patreon again, but if you want to support on Patreon, there are some perks. You get some insider content. And we have a really awesome group of what I would call the inner circle of patrons that are in a group chat on Facebook. And it's not just me, it's us helping each other. Iron sharpens iron. One man sharpens another. We're part of this virtual tribe and community that helps each other. And this tip came from there. And I give credit to Pat for this tip. He gives a lot of good tips. Everybody on there is awesome. But his tip is, you ever go to the airport and forget that you have a knife in your pocket or something like that? Well, apparently they sell those knives in batches on eBay. So if you're a knife guy, I'm big into EDC, I'm big on carrying a knife. I think a man, especially an alpha male, you ought to have a blade on you. You ought to have a knife on you. One of his, let's call it the tactical tip of the day, is you can get those knives on eBay. People auction those off. They buy them in big batches and lots, from what I understand, and they sell them on eBay at a bargain. So instead of going to Wish or whatever and getting the cheap Chinese knockoff of the knife you've always wanted, maybe go to eBay and check that and see if the Benchmade you've wanted or the Cold Steel is on there from a TSA confiscation that you can get at a good deal. And if you do and you save a little bit of money, remember this podcast, remember Patreon, and consider supporting again on goodshepherdtraining.com. That's a great tip, and it's even greater to be part of that community. I'm very humbled that those men are part of the community. That brings us to the more important thing, the tactical verse of the day. And we've covered a few verses today. This is going to be the first part of Psalm 71. In you, O Lord, I put my trust. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness, and cause me to escape. Incline your ear to me and save me. Be my strong refuge. Thanks, men. Have a blessed day.